In a quiet Buenos Aires neighborhood during the 1990s, 87-year-old Ricardo Clement decided it was time to reveal a secret he'd kept for 45 years. This kindly German immigrant, known to neighbors as a retired auto plant manager, was actually Adolf Eichmann, one of the principal architects of Nazi Germany's final solution. When word spread through the community, residents were stunned. They couldn't believe that this man, who regularly attended neighborhood gatherings and always offered a friendly greeting, was hiding such a dark past. This shocking revelation wasn't unique. Over the past 70 years, thousands of Nazi officials who should have faced war crimes trials successfully escaped justice, establishing new identities and lives around the world. Argentina became their most important sanctuary. On May 8, 1945, Germany officially surrendered. People worldwide believed justice would prevail, that those who'd orchestrated and carried out systematic atrocities would face judgment. Yet historical records reveal that in the months following the war's end, history's largest organized escape operation was already underway. According to Allied statistics, approximately 100,000 German officials and military personnel were listed as war crime suspects. In subsequent years, a significant portion mysteriously vanished, as if they disappeared from the face of the earth. Declassified documents from the U.S. National Archives reveal these disappearances were no accident. Months before Berlin fell, a secret organization codenamed Spider began arranging escape routes for high-ranking Nazi officials. The network's efficiency suggests powerful backing. But what's truly shocking is that this exodus didn't just receive tacit approval from certain nations, it received active assistance. Post-war investigations uncovered a startling reality. The ratlines, helping Nazi war criminals escape, formed a vast network spanning multiple countries and involving numerous organizations. Two main routes emerged, a northern route through Germany, Austria, and Switzerland to Italy, and a southern route through Spain, directly to South America. Fugitives would first hide in alpine monasteries, then travel to port cities like Rome or Genoa, ultimately sailing to Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and other South American countries. International Red Cross archives show that between 1945 and 1951, the organization issued approximately 120,000 protective passes. While intended to protect war refugees, substantial evidence indicates many ended up in the hands of war crime suspects. A Red Cross worker involved in document processing later admitted in his memoirs, "During that chaotic period, we couldn't distinguish between genuine victims and criminals. Many carried perfect forgeries. We simply couldn't verify their true identities." Even more disturbing was who facilitated these escapes. Vatican secret archives reveal that several high-ranking Catholic officials, including Austrian Bishop Alois Hudal, actively provided sanctuary and identity documents to former Nazi officials. In his later published memoirs, Bishop Hudal wrote, "We believed everyone deserved a second chance, regardless of past mistakes." This humanitarian stance concealed more complex political and religious calculations. The Church feared communist expansion in Europe and believed these staunch anti-communists might prove useful in future ideological struggles. Spanish dictator Francisco Franco's government also provided crucial support. As an Axis sympathizer, Spain became a vital transit point for former Nazi officials heading to South America. Spanish Foreign Ministry internal documents show the government instructed major ports to provide necessary assistance to Germans carrying specific documentation. Among all countries receiving former Nazi officials, Argentina was unquestionably the most important destination. President Juan Domingo Perón openly welcomed these German technical experts. Perón's motives weren't purely ideological sympathy. Declassified diplomatic documents reveal Argentina hoped to boost its industrial and military capabilities by attracting personnel with military and technical expertise. Additionally, Perón foresaw the coming Cold War and believed these committed anti-communists could help counter Soviet influence. Argentina's welcome of German immigrants had deep historical roots. Since the late 19th century, large numbers of Germans had settled in Argentina, forming substantial German communities. By the war's end, Argentina's German population exceeded 500,000. These communities provided perfect cover for newly arrived immigrants. Linguistic and cultural similarities allowed former Nazi officials to blend seamlessly into local society, while locals found it difficult to distinguish between pre-war immigrants and post-war fugitives. Estimates suggest that by Perón's fall in 1955, approximately 5,000 to 8,000 former Nazi officials had settled in Argentina. These included officials at every level, from senior generals to rank-and-file SS members, from scientists to administrators. They brought not just human resources, but substantial funds and technology. Some fugitives even transferred gold and artwork plundered from Europe to South America. In their new South American lives, these former Nazi officials successfully integrated into local society. Eichmann worked as a production manager at a Mercedes-Benz factory in Buenos Aires, where colleagues considered him a competent administrator. Josef Mengele established a pharmaceutical company and earned a respectable reputation in local medical circles. Franz Stangl worked at a Volkswagen plant in Brazil and even participated in local charity work. Their neighbors and colleagues had no idea about these seemingly ordinary German immigrants' true identities. Eichmann even joined the local German Cultural Association, regularly attending community events and forming close friendships with other immigrant families. Mengele used his medical expertise to provide health care to local women, building a positive community reputation. The success of these identity deceptions was astonishing. Take Stangl. He lived in Brazil for nearly 20 years, started a family, obtained Brazilian citizenship, and his Brazilian wife and children knew nothing of his past. Yet the most shocking revelations were still to come. Declassified government documents show that the United States, Britain, and other allied nations not only knew these war criminals' whereabouts, but actively recruited them. CIA documents on Operation Bloodstone reveal that starting in 1948, U.S. intelligence systematically recruited former Nazi officials as anti-Soviet spies. The reasoning was simple. These individuals possessed extensive Eastern European intelligence networks and unwavering anti-communist convictions. Klaus Barbie, the former Gestapo chief in Lyon, became an informant for U.S. Army counterintelligence. The American government not only protected him from French extradition requests, but helped him escape to Bolivia in 1951. CIA internal memos show Barbie provided extensive intelligence on European communist organizations and was considered an extremely valuable asset. British MI6 archives reveal similar practices. Under the operation codenamed Selection Board, British intelligence employed several former SS officers, including Gunther Eberling, who participated in Warsaw's cleansing operations. These collaborative relationships were often fraught with danger and uncertainty. When these former Nazi officials became security risks, intelligence agencies would abandon them without hesitation. Eberling ultimately died in a 1950 British intelligence operation, officially reported as an unfortunate accident. The Soviets likewise failed to maintain any moral high ground. An estimated 2,200 German scientists and technical experts were recruited by the Soviet Union, including numerous Nazi party members. Famous rocket scientist Wernher von Braun ultimately chose America, though the Soviets had actively courted him. Cold War realities blurred former moral boundaries. Yesterday's enemies could instantly become allies. Faced with this massive escape, certain individuals and organizations began the difficult work of tracking them down. Israeli Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal established a dedicated investigative agency committed to tracking war criminals at large. Wiesenthal's team analyzed various clues: immigration records, employment information, even social activities, gradually building an extensive war criminal database. In 1960, Israeli Mossad agents successfully captured Eichmann in Buenos Aires. Codenamed Final Action, this operation carried powerful symbolic significance. After months of surveillance, Mossad agents confirmed Eichmann's identity and daily routines. They captured him on his way home from work, then secretly transported him to Israel. Though the operation violated international law, it received widespread international support. However, Mossad faced an agonizing choice in Argentina: They discovered Josef Mengele was also active in the region, but limited resources meant choosing only one target. Ultimately, they selected Eichmann because his central role in the final solution made him the higher priority. While understandable, this decision meant Mengele would remain at large. Eichmann was secretly transported to Israel for trial and executed in 1962. His trial captivated global attention, providing the first detailed public understanding of Nazi atrocities. Yet such successes were rare. Josef Mengele, though repeatedly close to capture, ultimately evaded justice, dying naturally in Brazil in 1979. Mengele lived his final years in Brazil in constant fear, yet never expressed remorse for his past. In his private diary, he wrote, "I'm proud of my scientific contributions. History will validate the value of my work." Beginning in the 1980s, as Cold War tensions eased, international attitudes toward prosecuting Nazi war crimes shifted. The United States established a dedicated investigative agency, the Office of Special Investigations, to systematically investigate and deport former Nazi officials within U.S. borders. This office's creation marked a major American policy shift, from Cold War pragmatism back to pursuing justice. In 1983, the Bolivian government extradited Klaus Barbie to France for trial. The 82-year-old was ultimately sentenced to life imprisonment, dying in prison in 1991. Barbie's trial exposed American government protection of former Nazi officials after the war, triggering international condemnation. The U.S. Justice Department was forced to issue a formal apology, acknowledging morally questionable decisions made during the Cold War. Franz Stangl was extradited to West Germany in 1967 and sentenced to life imprisonment in 1970. Surprisingly, in a 1971 prison interview, he first admitted his culpability. "Yes, I'm responsible for those deaths. I can no longer deceive myself." Stangl's confession became one of the few cases where a high-ranking Nazi official publicly acknowledged their crimes. Entering the 21st century, governments gradually declassified extensive post-war secret documents. These archives revealed many previously unknown truths. FBI files released in 2014 included over 700 investigative reports on Hitler's possible escape. Though most proved to be rumors, these documents demonstrated the U.S. government's intense focus on Nazi leadership's whereabouts. One report even detailed a possible submarine escape route to South America for Hitler, though such claims never found conclusive evidence. German Federal Archives materials show that the West German government also secretly employed hundreds of former Nazi officials in the 1950s, including key positions in the foreign ministry, intelligence services, and even the judicial system. This practice, termed denazification failure, reflected West Germany's Cold War dilemma, needing to break with its Nazi past while requiring experienced officials to rebuild state institutions. According to statistics from various declassified archives, the number of successfully escaped Nazi war criminals far exceeded previous estimates. Approximately 5,000 to 8,000 fled to Argentina, 2,000 to 3,000 to Brazil, 1,000 to 1,500 settled in Chile, hundreds entered the United States, Canada, and Australia, and about 1,000 were recruited as spies by the US, Britain, Soviet Union, and others. This means that of tens of thousands of war crime suspects who should have faced trial, perhaps fewer than 10% actually face legal consequences. This history reveals several thought-provoking issues. First, the international justice system's fragility when confronting mass atrocities. While the Nuremberg trials held symbolic importance, their scope was extremely limited. Most participants in Nazi crimes never faced legal sanctions. This incomplete justice left permanent trauma for victims and their descendants. Second, how Cold War politics distorted the pursuit of justice. To gain strategic advantage, former enemies could instantly become allies. While such pragmatic foreign policy might yield short-term benefits, it ultimately undermined international law's authority and moral principles' consistency. Finally, these events remind us that historical truth is often more complex and disturbing than it appears. Many historical events we consider resolved actually contain numerous unsolved mysteries. Government classified archives may still hide more shocking truths. Today, as the last World War II participants pass away, this history seems consigned to the past, yet its lessons remain relevant. The modern international criminal court system partly stems from reflection on Nazi war criminals evading justice. Meanwhile, international cooperation mechanisms for extraditing war criminals have significantly improved. However, recent international conflicts demonstrate that choosing between political interests and moral principles remains a real challenge for governments. The Syrian civil war, Myanmar's Rohingya crisis, Xinjiang issues, and other contemporary events all show that when facing mass atrocities, the international community still sees political calculations override humanitarian principles. This history of Nazi war criminal escapes ultimately tells us that justice may be delayed, but shouldn't be permanently absent. Those who work to uncover the truth, whether Nazi hunters, investigative journalists, or historians, remind us that memory and accountability are the most important safeguards against history repeating itself. Their work honors not just the dignity of the dead, but the future of the living. When we look back on this history, we can't help but ask, are there other historical truths hidden around us that we don't know? And when facing injustice, what choices will we make? These questions have no simple answers, but contemplating them is itself the best way to honor history.